Breaking news. America is under attack by forces from another world, and everybody knows it. The evidence is overwhelming, and the government has been acting accordingly for many years. Most people have seen the videos from the space station before the footage turns off, where they're basically shooting energy weapons from the surface to whatever is floating around out there. There's an active war going on, and these insurgents from another world are currently terraforming the planet, as well as poisoning the food, the air, the water. They're spraying the skies, spraying you like bugs, and the UFO footage that's out there is fairly mesmerizing, to say the least. Some of it could be questionable. Some of it might be passed off as blue beam. What can you really trust out there these days? But there's no doubt that they're terraforming the planet, that they're rolling out the eugenics programs, and they're out to get you, ladies and gentlemen. The question is, who are these people and what is going on? There's just so much to cover, so much footage, and so many insights to reveal out there, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, we're dealing with creatures from another world, but we're not just dealing with one army or one nation. We're dealing with multiple insurgencies all at once. We're just a sitting target out here in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of this galaxy, if you will. And it's quite obvious that we're dealing with multiple factions fighting over this planet for its resources. Companies out there like SpaceX, like Blue Origins, and the like, know that mining ore from the moon or asteroids are going to be big business out there. And you just can't imagine what the total net worth of the resources on Earth must be. Not to mention that we have other precious resources like humans, which could be used for all sorts of delicacies, whether it be adrenochrome or other things, ladies and gentlemen. And one can only imagine what these other things could be. One thing that we know about this enemy is that it moves near the speed of light. It certainly can. These entities that we're up against, some of this army that we're up against, isn't just physically based, but it is spiritually based as well. And it's almost as if you can see the shadows of these creatures every once in a while. They move so fast that 1 second for us is like an entire year for them. They've got plenty of time to plan ahead, and with their technology, they know exactly what you're thinking. And so we're dealing with an enemy that can essentially tell the future, plan ahead, and move much faster than we can. And they've moved, ladies and gentlemen. They've planted their clones everywhere. And it seems like they've been controlling what's going on this planet for quite some time. What is the end game? What are they waiting for? What is going on this planet, ladies and gentlemen? Obviously, one of the armies that we're up against is the armies of the devil. And you've got basically all of these people in power worshiping the devil. What is the devil? What is that reference? In the Bible, it's a reference to a creature from another world, from another dimension, and an army of evil from another world. And when you think of the Bible in the context of the modern day, you certainly have many more ideas than people ever could imagine. And we can clearly see what this beast system is going to look like. It's rolling out before our very eyes. And, they're plotting our demise. They've got a plan. We're the targets, ladies and gentlemen. Humanity is the target. And they're coming after us. They're killing us off as fast as they can, as fast as they can get away with. And one of the advantages of this army is camouflage. Every army uses camouflage. And the illusion that they're not there makes it very difficult to target this enemy, ladies and gentlemen. And that's exactly what they want. That's exactly what they need, to keep people in the dark, to keep the information suppressed, to keep people believing in the Santa Claus, to keep believing in just the secular world, to keep believing in this they live television matrix that we find ourselves in. And as long as people are just living the official story, then we're absolutely no threat to this army of darkness, ladies and gentlemen. And, picking these enemies out is like trying to see the wind. And you can't see the wind directly, but you can see it indirectly. You can see, what's happening in its wake, the leaves that are blowing around. And that's exactly the same thing with this army of darkness. We can't see them directly because of the speed at which they travel, because of the technology that essentially cloaks them and hides them from plain view. But we can tell they're there by this eugenics program that's being rolled out, by the terraforming that is being rolled out. They're literally terraforming the planet, turning it into some kind of Venus or Mars, or who knows what kind of environment they need. In any case, it's clear that the environment is changing. It's clear that we've got some stranger than fiction phenomenons going on out there. And I think it's important to understand that each and every person is a target. And while people are participating in the politics, while they're following the television, they essentially make themselves an even bigger target because they just have no clue about what's going on. They have no clue about how dangerous the food is in our country, how dangerous the water is in our country, how dangerous the air is in our country. And they don't realize how dangerous this beast system technology is that's being rolled out and distributed to everyone. And they make it seem like, you got to have it. You got to have the smartphone. You got to have, the latest technology. Otherwise, you're just not going to be able to function out there. You're not going to be cool. You're not going to get a date. I mean, this has been, carefully conceived. And it's a trap. Because these phones, these routers, this wireless technology, it's actually poisoning people, weakening their immune system, making them more susceptible to whatever else is being rolled out there. It's part of the equation. And you might be asking yourself, well, why don't they just annihilate everyone immediately? Well, obviously there must be some sort of problem with that. And undoubtedly there is a covert war going on right now. They're spending billions and trillions of dollars on who knows what deep underground military bases, space forces, and the like for a reason. And there's really some freaky stories that we could discuss in terms of, what these programs are doing right now. But to liken it to something that most people could understand, it's obvious that, a lot of money is being siphoned into a Section 7 type of program. And, this is supposed to be our interstellar defense program. What's going on? You see the evidence of it with some of the videos out there, and it's mostly an energy weapons based defense program. But, they're also preparing for the worst, for the full-blown invasion, and they're hoping that some people will be able to survive in these deep underground military bases, a last stand, if you will, for what's coming. And if people actually knew what was going on, well, they would just essentially freak out, and there'd just be no stopping the riots, no stopping the mayhem. Nobody would survive today. But it's becoming more and more difficult for them to hide the truth, because you can see the effects of this program Why are they so successful, ladies and gentlemen? Why is this insurgency so successful, so difficult to defend against? It's mostly because of the clones out there. They're dropping clones in positions of influence and in positions of strength. You know, they're replacing CEOs, politicians, celebrities, and the like. So they basically have total control of perception and policy in this country. And that means that whatever forces that are resisting this insurgency are deep cover, deep black, and the like, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we've got some videos of some of these clones that are being dropped out there. If we can get the video guy onto the same page. But check out Adam Schiff's eyes here. I think we're going to have to, slow this down or freeze it. But essentially what we're looking at here is Schiff's eyes are morphing in ways that you can't even imagine. And obviously these people that we're seeing on television are the prime candidates for being replaced by this interstellar insurgency, ladies and gentlemen. Here's a real remarkable video released by the Navy of a go-fast UFO. Now, is this some kind of hyper missile? Is this some other kind of technology? Look, it's okay to be a skeptic out there, but there's an overwhelming amount of evidence that suggests that we're dealing with something, far beyond that. I mean, you see the eyes. I mean, you see the iris. It looks like it's branching out a little bit and morphing right there. And we've got more of it, ladies and gentlemen. We got tons more clones and the like. And, we covered the Hillary collapse on 9/11/2016, how, shady that was, the body doubles and the like. But, this is just another example of the clones. Now, on the left, we have Adam Schiff. On the right, we actually have a senior scientist from the European Space Program. What side of the fence do you think these guys are on is the question, but they look remarkably similar. We're seeing more clones out there than you can imagine, and you would have to think that these clone factories, at least initially, had a limited selection of possibilities. That's why they all kind of look alike, and they must be able to tweak it a little beyond that by now. There's no telling how many variations there are, but the fact that we're seeing so much duplicity in the clones out there tells us that there's at least some kind of standard or basic genetic makeup that they start from. In any case, the ability to place people in positions of influence actually gives them a whole lot of control on what's going on in the world. This is the new world order. And all of these politicians, pretty much as far as we can tell on both sides of the Atlantic, are fully taken over. And the people are just totally unaware. They think they're fighting Democrats versus Republicans. They think they're fighting Tory versus Labor or socialists or communists and the like. But it's so much worse than that. And we're dealing with, again, entities essentially that are, traveling at nearly the speed of light, not only physically, but mentally as well. And perhaps it gives them this appearance of just being, from another dimension. They're phased into a whole different world, but they're interacting with this world. We're seeing traces of that over and over again, whether it be the demonic possessions and the like. And, we've just got tons of examples. We're just trying to coordinate with the video guy to try to bring these up. But in any case, this is one of the things that we're looking at. And there's no telling exactly what their morphology is or what their, atomic structure is. Our theory on the matter is that these spiritual entities, if you will, amorphous creatures that basically function at the speed of light, are able to fuse with just about anything in the physical world. And we're looking at some of these quote unquote spaceships, but they don't necessarily have to travel that way. And I don't think that whatever we're looking at with these UFOs and the like are necessarily the armies of the devil. I mean, these could be people from another Earth. And what makes us think that there might be another Earth? If you go back to the book of Genesis, and of course this is just our interpretation here, but if you go back to the book of Genesis and you look at the story of Cain and Abel, after Cain was banished to another place, he married somebody. It seems like another town. Adam and Eve, it would seem like, were just the first. They weren't the last. And, again, that's our interpretation. I think people are free to express themselves on that point if they'd like in the comments or, on another venue. But I think that possibly tells us that, we're certainly not necessarily the only humans that have ever been created in the history of the universe. Now, look, that I think is an interesting conversation, but there's no telling how many humans might be out there, traveling, finding us. Perhaps, they've discovered this millions of years ago and they're just trying to find all of the other Earths out there. It's hard to say if these guys are the good guys or the bad guys, but if the New World Order is trying to shoot these guys down, it's almost safe to say that perhaps these guys are the good guys, but maybe they are the bad guys. And these are the ones that pose the biggest risk. It's really hard to say who's who out there. And, you could obviously ask the question, why hasn't there been some kind of UN summit, the Earth meets the Federation or the like? And I think that, is an interesting question. Perhaps we're still too primitive. Perhaps there's other reasons why communications have been, really limited, at least from most people's perspective. Perhaps there are active communications when it comes to government agencies and, what some of these visitors might be. And, that was insinuated in the Phil Schneider documentaries. And, they were talking about several different races and the like. But I think the big evil, the underestimated evil out there is the spiritual evil that was, created just like everybody else. And I think that they're the ones that are probably the most worrisome out there. And we try to focus on the nature of these shadow people a little bit as well, because we feel that they're the ones that are perhaps doing the most damage. And, perhaps, all that was necessary was for them to possess, the right group of people and to, basically roll out their programs from there, roll out the beast system, roll out the clones from the clone factories and the like. I mean, these clones aren't necessarily dropped off by some kind of interstellar ship. That's, another question. I don't think we have all of the answers. I think, everybody's got some pieces to the puzzle. But I think, whatever these dark forces are, their intentions have been made quite clear. And the question remains, what do you do about people or armies that have essentially declared war on you and are trying to take you out through, soft weapons, silent weapons, so that they can just, claim plausible deniability. Oh no, it's just your imagination. Just go back to shopping, go back to work. Don't worry about these death towers that are coming closer. Don't worry about this fluoride that they're dumping in the water. Don't worry about these mandated toxic vaccines. Don't worry about these pesticides. Don't worry about the geoengineering. Not that, don't worry about these death towers. One wasn't enough, so we brought 2 into the neighborhood, and now we're bringing them, like on every city block. And these things have, a huge range. They make it seem like, oh, they only work, for 100 feet. But these things have a huge range, and now we're learning that they've got scanning abilities where they can scan you like some kind of, see through the walls kind of radar, and follow you wherever you go. And the AI is always just watching you. They know who you are. They know what you look like, how you walk, how you sound. They know your phone number. They know, what accounts you use. I mean, they can track you everywhere. And, this is to their benefit. I mean, obviously their technology, their supercomputers are running simulations forecasting the future like we would forecast the weather. And so, there's no telling how many different civilizations are, here right now fighting it out with similar types of technology. But I think that the entire human existence has always been plagued by this mirror image of humanity, this dark matrix, this dark spiritual force that has been plaguing humanity wherever it's been. And, it knows, it fights on every front, and it's possessing people. And I think it's the big threat, the army of the devil. And people underestimate that. And, that's exactly what this army wants. It wants you to feel like it's not even there. That way, when it strikes, I mean, you're thinking it's, maybe it's, the Russians. Maybe it's the people from the Middle East. Maybe it's, the Democrats. You have no idea where the attack actually came from, where these death towers actually came from, where these pesticides, where the fluoride, where the geoengineering has actually come from. You have no idea, ladies and gentlemen, because, you're looking for something that you can see. And again, the army that we're up against is, functioning at the speed of light. And if you ever get a glimpse of, some kind of shadow streaking, from the corner of your eye, you're catching a glimpse of the civilization. You're catching a glimpse of, these creatures that are operating everywhere. And, they've got technology that's much more advanced than, anything we could possibly imagine. Communications and the like is not a problem. And not only that, but they obviously have the technology to read your mind. And that might sound, something like, right out of a science fiction movie, ladies and gentlemen. But, the evidence is fairly suggestive. And as suggestive as it is, the question is, can you really afford not to plan for that type of contingency? And again, this type of army, an army that you can't see, is like, trying to see the wind. And you're not going to be able to see it directly. You're only going to be able to see it indirectly. And it's only by starting to by acting accordingly, by understanding this as a possibility, will you ever see glitches in the matrix. And, literally you're fighting against the devil and its army. And it's, it doesn't look like people all the time. And when you start thinking about the possibilities of what these creatures might be, it's only then do you understand, what, has to be done out there. And that is the next question. What has to be done? Who are these people on the television? Who are these people around you really, when you're a person that's awake and a person of faith? Because essentially, if you're a person of faith, if you're part of the light, then this darkness is coming after you. And you might think it's just, strange people being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But these Agent Smiths and, from the Dark Matrix are definitely out there working against you, to say the least. And I suppose that's about as much as we can say for now. But I think it's important to reiterate the fact, no matter how, unsavory you might find it, all of these people on television are potentially puppets for this dark matrix. They're all potentially synthetics, clones, you name it, robotoids, Westworld-like, whatever, for this dark matrix, for this army of the dark side. And while you think, oh yeah, I agree with this person on television, they're telling me exactly what I want to hear, behind the scenes, they're basically, rolling out the death towers even faster. They're putting even more, fluoride in the water. They're mandating even more vaccines. They're brainwashing your children, and rendering them, vulnerable. Full speed ahead. That's what these people are doing. And so while you're loving, the show on TV, it's got you 100% involved. You're in it to win it. You're going to fight for your guy. These people have you exactly where they want you. Totally in the dark, totally looking in the wrong direction, not even seeing what's coming. And what is coming? It's the Terminators. It's the Matrix. It's the full extermination, full assimilation of humanity as we know it. And will no longer be natural creatures as we were made, but will all of a sudden be, something completely synthetic and artificial like the Borg. And I think that's the idea of this dark side, is to turn everything in this physical world into darkness, ladies and gentlemen. We'll have to leave it there for this broadcast. Be sure to check out our website, stfnreport.com. Like and subscribe. Feel free to mirror, share, and help us reach more people. Support us at patreon.com/STF News. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.